having us here, and we very much appreciate the increased focus on safety during this session, and then of course with this bill that you're reviewing. Santa Fe is the smallest, Dr. Bonin described, small and strong community. Our district is committed to fostering a healthy and safe environment for our students, but as you know, last year between Hurricane Harvey and a mass tragedy, our community experienced unimaginable losses, and 8 students, 2 teachers, and 13 others injured. Definitely extremely challenging year with 2 disasters and something that touched all of our lives forever. As a district and community, we work very hard towards recovery and moving forward for our students, and we remain united to share the purpose of creating the best educational experiences for all of our students. Immediately following May 18th, our first goal in supporting our families to heal and prepare for the start of school and close out the school year and graduation, which we did. We began looking at additional safety measures that might be needed so that our students and staff could feel comfortable and safe in the schools as we started the school year. As recommended in our governor's plan and in this House Bill 17, Safety and Security Committee was formed, and we're tasked with considering options that we might consider in moving forward in our district. While we've always placed safety as a priority and adhered to our best practices and those established in our Texas State Safety School Center, we've worked closely with for many, many years, including a comprehensive multi-hazard
This is a bill about hardening our
audits,
schools.
incident protocols, drills, crisis training, alert trainings. Those are things that we had in place prior. Many enhancements since. Community input was very important, so initially we tackled hardening of our schools. Hardening of our schools included many items such as alarms, fire alarms, drills, additional security vestibules, metal detectors. We also looked at additional trainings, trades trainings, we incorporated the Sigma threat assessment training and alert training for our officers and staff at levels 1 and 2. Just a few things. We also included our email monitoring, social monitoring, trauma and violence training, an additional mental health support and training for our staff and for students. We were fortunate enough to receive grants where we added 4 trauma counselors who are trained to assist our students in helping them recover from this horrible tragedy. They're still in place and being widely utilized in our schools today. To date, we have I think about 50% of our students at our high school who have accessed these counselors. So the mental health component of the resources needed and the support for the mental health component is I believe, very critical in us moving forward, and then I think as a state moving forward to ensure the resources are there, the tools are there, and the support is there for our students and our staff and our families and our communities. During the summer, we worked with our architects to redesign our high school. We received a few donations, our support from our Lieutenant Governor and our metal detectors. This year, as a result of preparations in the summer, we more than doubled our security personnel, 14 commissioned police officers, 10 security assistants that assist with our metal detectors and take care of real-time camera monitoring, perimeter door checks, ID checks, badge checks, and general hall monitoring. We also made enhancements to classroom doors, locked, electronic notification systems, installed panic buttons, and dual alarm system, fire alarm systems. These renovations were for the most part completed before we started. Some have carried on throughout the beginning of the year, totaling about $2 million or a little bit more. Many of the renovations were done with the intent of securing and hardening our facilities. And we are grateful for the proposed legislation that places a specific allotment, this Bill 1754, specific allotment for some of these safety measures and financial assistance specifically for us as a district, which I'll touch on as well. And looking forward to in terms of funding, Santa Fe ISD specifically has requested additional funding to help us recover specifically with facility needs. They're outlined, fortunately, in Senate Bill 500 in addition to that. We We very much appreciate you and our support in public ed. We are very appreciative of Senator Taylor and Representative Bonin, who were not only there present with us on May 18th, but have been there since. As Ms. Rice stated, very supportive personally and as a representative of the state, and represented the importance of support from the state level to our local level. So we have very much appreciated that support, and we'll continue to work together and hope to lead the efforts in enhancing infrastructure resources and training and using all of our learnings to help other schools. So I'll stop with that.
Thank you. So as Dr. Wallace mentioned, our journey so far, we've done a lot of hardening. We've done some things that basically we were forced to do. The community demanded it, and we did it. Metal detectors, things like that she mentioned. We've completed most of that. We've spent money that we pulled it out of fund balance at the time. We were able to get a few grants and some things like that. But now we're looking at the long term, and with the additional counseling, the mental health counseling, the grief counseling, the social media monitoring, and all these things, we really don't know. We don't have a good feel right now for how long we will need those things, but we know we're going to need them for a significant amount of time. We have gone out, and as you said, have brought in a lot of folks, and we cannot continue to employ folks with grant money. We cannot continue to do that. And it will force us down the road, if these bills do not pass, to make some decisions that we really don't want to have to make. We will have to start prioritizing some of the things that they've done. For instance, she mentioned the additional security. Just those folks running those metal detectors are costing us somewhere around $400,000 a year to $500,000 a year. The assets were donated, but that is a cost that's reoccurring every year. If we can't keep those folks there, the metal detectors go and those stuff. So you see where we're going with this and a lot of other things. But I think long term, we need to really be focusing on a lot more with our counselors. We have 4 additional counselors at the high school right now that were paid for through a grant from the state of $322,000. And we know, just as an example, we had freshmen, sophomores, and juniors from last year that are still in that building. But so we know that's a 3-year cycle just to get that group graduated. But then the impact, even at the lower grades in such a small, tight-knit community, this is a very long-term thing. So we want to make sure that we do our part, and we're asking you to do your part on not only safety and security, but also in this mental health piece as well.
Thank you, appreciate that. Members with questions? Mr. Kelly.
It's true. Dr. Wall, can you comment on police presence in the district prior to May 18th?
So yes, thank you. Prior to May 18th, we've had a police force in our district for many years. So we had currently 7 full-time officers, and 2 at the high school, 2 at the elementary school. Junior high and 1 at each elementary school, which was probably at the time, I would say probably a higher level of ratio for police officers in schools than in many. So safety has always been important to us. So our police force has been well staffed, well trained, and well equipped. They did go through the work with the safety center and did alert training. Actually, we hosted alert training and have continued to host alert training at our schools. So our officers have been equipped with assault rifles for 8 years. So very well trained, very well equipped, and very important to us in the district.
Thank you for being here and sharing.
What do you think your costs? What do you think your ongoing costs will be?
If we were going to maintain the current level of security support that we have now, the additional that we added, $500,000.
Just 500.
Around $500,000 a year for the personnel. The costs that we've added in terms of hardening are more one-time costs, so those are not recurring. So
How
that's,
many kids are in the district?
I'm sorry,
How many kids are in the district?
about 4,800. Right. In terms of counseling and mental health support, we've added the 4 trauma counselors, although the VOCA grant has also provided opportunities for additional counselors at our junior high and elementary that have also been important in assisting our district overall and recovering. That cost has been 322, plus probably another 150 that is being covered through the FOCA grant, not directly through the district. So $1 million, I would say, for the additional support. And for obvious reasons, but then we also, many of the hardening pieces were also included in the junior high and elementaries, metal detectors. We increased the vestibule at the high school, so that was not done at the other schools, so the facility changes were not done. The panic alarms, the in-class panic alarms were done at the high school, those were not done at the other schools. And the fire alarm, the dual active shooter fire alarm was done at the high school, not done at the others. The real-time camera monitoring, the video surveillance all the time, alarm doors, all of those weren't. So the ones that were appropriate for the elementary and that we could actually afford, that's what we did. And the majority was focused on that.
And on the counseling piece, I certainly understand the kids that were there and, and are taking the priority, but have you added the counseling piece in the younger grades to
Yes,
hopefully
sir.
identify a problem earlier?
So, and one thing I probably didn't focus on as much as some of the training with the threat assessment teams and some of that piece, which is also an important piece of identifying so that you can identify and address the issues early. And so that was identified, and the training happened at all the schools.
Okay.
So, and then yes, we added counselors at the elementary and the middle school as well.
And I'm sure it's probably too early to have real data on the counseling piece, but one thing we've studied last year is this issue, and I've always been of the belief that hardening's great, buying stuff is great, but we have a mental health issue. I mean, we have
Hardening's not the
Christ, right? So I just wonder if, not, God forbid you ever have to identify a child that would do this again, but have you identified other problems with kids? Do you see it work in the mental health?
I would say definitely our kids, as I mentioned, are accessing the counselors, which
Okay.
is certainly going to have results in terms of assisting them with moving forward. But then also, I think the threat assessment teams have been a huge part of that. So the intent of those teams is to bring multiple people together, teachers, police officers, counselors, and administrators, and identify behaviors or concerning actions that may happen that you can then pull together and look at that information and intervene as early as possible, and then follow it through the system, follow it through the school, so that things that reoccur, you're able to address and work with students, work with families, work with teachers, and the training is important in that as well.
Great.
So I would like to just add one thing, the impact to the students is obviously higher at high school, I guess it was. But that has not stopped the demand from the parents at the lower levels to not forget them as well. So we have, as you mentioned, done some things. We're looking at other things down the road, obviously when we can afford them, when funds are made available, but the demand is there for it. We just had to prioritize where the dollars available
Sure.
had to go first.
Absolutely, and that's really what I wanted to know is if ultimately it's what your plan is going to go to every campus. But the mental health piece is really the most intriguing part to me, man. And I know that takes more time to see results than installing a metal detector. But I'm glad to hear that you're doing that with all grades and training. I just think that's so important. Anyway, thank you.
The numbers that we received yesterday were about approximately half of the students at the high school have access to use those counselors.
So that tells us that having the counselors on staff, on site, has had an impact on students that they may not have otherwise. So the ability to access them on site is, I think, critical in that. So we're looking at resources, having counselors available or having mental health support available on site immediately is got to be a huge key point to that.
Share Mr. King.
I definitely agree with Representative King. We did hear testimony over the interim from a number of students and field counselors. And like I said, I agree with them 100%. The question about accessing was interesting to me because there were certainly some concerns raised during the testimony by the kids themselves and others about kids maybe not accessing it due to a stigma associated with it. But from what your testimony is, there doesn't seem to be that issue. And I just wanted to kind of hear if there's anything different y'all did to address, any sort of stigma, not a real one, but understand kids who need to know how professional or counselor, that can be tough. So I want to get your thoughts on that, on the access, and if there was a stigma that you had to address it, or if kids were just openly going there.
So prior to the event, our trauma counselors weren't in place. Our counselors, not that they did not address at-risk behaviors, but they acted as many in regards to academic counseling with support as needed with other students. So for us, I think in a different place than many. And so I would say, yes, society-wise, there might be a stigma in terms of that mental health of seeking support. I think for us right now, we're in a different place in our community and our schools, and that there's an understanding of the need for assistance in health and healing and recovery. So the fact that we have that we live with every day is something that I think that makes that less of a stigma. But then I also believe that, as we said, with access, and I think research supports the fact that if counselors are available, students are going to access them more, which also speaks to the fact that we have now more counselors. Our ratio of student counselors is very low, or high, whichever. So about 200 students per counselor is what our current ratio is at the high school, and it is. That's a very, very good number. I'm not sure it's sustainable for us without additional support, and but I do think it's necessary, obviously, that they're bringing access. So the ability to access them and to begin relationships, and it's similar to our police officers. If they're there and they're available, students will access them in different ways. They report, they're more comfortable talking, it is less of a stigma and more of an accepted practice and behavior. So I do think integrating, the importance of integrating those resources within the school, all schools, is going to make a difference in eliminating some of that and being able to hit those layers of counseling and support, mental health support across the board, whether it's substance abuse, suicide prevention, whatever it happens to be, bullying, whatever the issues and problems that our society has, that our students have as well.
So while the numbers were encouraging, the kids were using it, one fear that I said, you don't know what you don't know. And those types of things that you brought up, they're going to exist. And a lot of times, we're putting out there what we have. This is available, people know it, telling the community this is what's available. The city of Santa Fe is partnered with the school district's part of it, the state, Texas Children's Hospital with the Resiliency Center. There are a lot of things out there, but we still don't know what we don't know. So that's what the threat assessment teams and those type of things are more important. When you mention threat assessment, you think, all right, that's just somebody that's fixing to do violence. But that threat assessment team that's there for anything like that, and they try to get people involved immediately. And even, our struggle right now is how do you reach out to the parents and tell the parents, if you think something's going on with your child, you need to be asking those hard questions, but you also have to let us know. You cannot keep that bottled up until it becomes a real problem.
And may I also add that the training for all staff is I think, something that we've integrated in throughout the school year for lots of reasons, but I do also think that it's been beneficial so that teachers have that trauma-informed care, self-care, wellness understandings, mental health awareness, first aid training, all of the mental first aid training, that as a group, then you come together and start recognizing areas that you can address immediately instead of allowing students to struggle.
Absolutely. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your testimony.
Any questions? Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it very much. Greg Smith. Until you come. All right, hold on a second. Just give me a second. Greg Smith, Texas Associated School Commissioners, Clear Creek, New York.
Paul McClarty, Deputy Superintendent of Augusta.
Got it. All right. again, tell us who you are, your position on the bill, please.
My name is Greg Smith, Superintendent of Schools for Clear Creek ISD, and I'm in support of HB17. I also represent Tessa as President-elect. I'm also representing Galveston County Schools Consortium, which is made up of all of the school districts in Galveston, friends from Santa Fe. For that matter, we're all Santa Fe.
Greg, I gotta stop you for a second. I just have you as Tech Associate for School Administrator at Clear Creek ISD. That's what you
Good
can
enough.
sign.
Good enough.
Is that correct? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
This past year was, for many of us, a wake-up call. It changed the way we go about doing our business in terms of truly living and learning in a different way. From Parkland to our friends south of us, from Sutherland Springs to Pittsburgh, too many lives have been lost to shootings. We established the Clear Creek ISD, we established a school safety committee, with membership synonymous with the makeup of the committee, opposed to the legislation. We actually had more than 900 parents submit their names to fill 15 parent positions. Our committee included students, pastoral leaders, FBI, police officers, parents, teachers, and frontline personnel like receptionists and bus drivers, local mental health providers. And we invited our state lawmakers to join us, which we're thankful Dr. Bond made most of our meetings, along with Senator Taylor's staff member. The committee met over the summer, and the group dug deep into the use of metal detectors, clear backpacks, marshal programs, school district surveillance, and perimeter deterrent, social and emotional health of kids, current offerings, as well as proactive and reactive training and communication for our staff members and parents and students. We never discussed the limitation of our local budget. We told them to outline the needs, and we would identify the means to fund them. In the end, the group made 39 recommendations, and our locally elected school board accepted them, which you have before you. The committee wanted more peace officers, not armed teachers. We hired 15 additional officers to start the school year, bringing 3 peace officers to each of our 5 comprehensive high schools, 2 officers to each of the 10 intermediate schools, and increased partnerships with other 13 municipalities to help patrol our 26 elementary schools. They wanted more emotional social support with support counselors, not academic advisors. We hired 15 more additional student support counselors. We added 1 to each of our high schools, bringing the total to 2, and placed 1 in each of our intermediate schools. This tripled our student support counselor force in the school district, and I can tell you this is not anything less than a game changer. We are only in the 2nd semester. I cannot imagine operating without these critical teams in place. Just the past week, 9 weeks alone, we've held 214 emergency conferences, which means the child's parent and teacher is asked to come to school to secure the immediate safety of their students. In the past 9 weeks, we've referred 446 students for outside counseling. And year to date, our student support counselors had 16,619 visits from students, many of them which are repeat visits for continuing social and emotional support. They wanted more bullet-resistant film, door locks, and updated surveillance cameras. And we are retrofitting doors and installing bullet-resistant reception areas into reviewing, and we're looking into reviewing surveillance packages. They wanted standard protocols, and we have improved training for all. We're doing that. Robust emergency communications network with our See Something, Say Something, which is working quite well. Today, we've adopted and trained on the standard response protocol, which was recommended and endorsed by Governor Abbott. We have made agreements with local churches to help in the event of a crisis, and to use the facilities for students and parent reunification.
It's amazing how these government officials can talk past their allotted time, but I guarantee you they're going to shut up the citizens.
Handle and communicate with across the district. They wanted more lockdown drills, which is why the Clear Creek ISD has mandated each school to do a minimum of 2 lockdown drills per year. They asked us to reduce the number of fire drills to accommodate this increase in emergency training. We've established a list of training across the board for all certified employees, as well as principals, bus drivers, substitute teachers. We designated a professional learning day this past February, where staff went through training ranging from mental health to CPR, trauma-informed care, CPR, basic first aid, active shooter capabilities. In total, and to date, Clear Creek ISD has spent $2.2 million for recurring costs associated with staffing and training. Additionally, another $20 million has been spent or earmarked for facility and surveillance improvements across the school district and the purchase of police cars as well. In conclusion, we want to thank you for joining us on this call to systematically address safety in Texas public schools. House Bill 17 and this committee substitute moves us rightfully along that trajectory. It is our hope that this bill and the funding for it sees a seamless passage to law.
Thank you.
All right, Paul McClarty, Deputy Superintendent, Business and Support Services, Clear Creek ISD, and I'm for the bill. To carry on from what Dr. Smith was covering, he said we spent $2.2 million in staffing ongoing costs that will continue for forever. We've also estimated we're going to spend about $20 million or more over hardening of our facilities. The point is that these improvements were based on one school district's needs, locally developed and implemented. Each school district in Texas will have their own needs. Some may need want metal detectors, some may want marshals, some may want peace officers with guns. So we strongly support the Texas State Schools allotment part of this bill that could provide funding to each school district based on average daily attendance, so they can use that as they see fit. We recognize there's a shared commitment and a shared cost. We do not believe the state should harbor the entire cost of hardening or any of our facilities, but just as we do not believe, we do believe that locally elected boards or taxing base can harbor the entire cost as well. We would offer just a few refinements maybe to the bill. It's a great bill. Dr. Bonin attended all of our meetings and pulled together basically what you see in front of you are our recommendations and use that as kind of a starting point. But certainly there's some things that we would like to offer up. The non-physician mental health professional, that's a great start, but having just one for like district like Region 4, which has 1.2 million children, it could be problematic. So what we've done is we've added student support counselors at every high school and intermediate school. And then we also offer an outside support from a psychologist that we actually fund and we refer students to if they're in dealing with their needs, with their parents' permission. We've had 446 referrals to date, as Dr. Smith mentioned. We appreciate the language that allows schools to seek waivers on required instructional minutes so we can do some training with our staff. We want to thank you for recognizing emergency preparedness at the school level must go beyond the fire drills that are handled routinely in our district. One of our students on our panel pointed out that since 1950 there has not been a school fire with 10 or more fatalities. However, we've had 10 or more fatalities in school shootings as late as last year. So there's definitely a need for that. Finally, the terroristic threat for public notification may need some work because on any given day in a 3,000 student high school, there's going to be threats made and it may or may not lead to an arrest for a terroristic threat. So perhaps parent notification should be mandatory if a person is actually charged with a terroristic threat. We've had those in our district, and so we would think that that might be something to work with. In summary, we just are totally in favor of House Bill 17 and appreciate the committee listening to this and Dr. Bond for bringing it.
All right, any questions? Thank you, we appreciate it. Thank you for hard work on this. Deputy Martinez Prather. I got that right. Testifying. Neutrally on the bill. Texas School Safety Center, Texas State University testifying neutrally on the bill, right?
Yes, sir.
Tell me who you were.
My name is Kathy Martinez Prather, and I'm the director of the Texas School Safety Center at Texas State University. Just a little bit about the School Safety Center. Our entity was created in 1999 and authorized by the 77th Texas Legislature in 2001. The center is tasked in Chapter 37 of the Texas Education Code and the Governor's Homeland Security Strategic Plan to serve as a clearinghouse for the dissemination of safety and security information, including training, technical assistance, research for K-12 schools and community colleges across Texas. Our mission is to serve schools to create safe, secure, and healthy learning environments. The center takes a comprehensive approach to school safety, in that we provide training and develop tools and resources for schools on how to prevent and mitigate, prepare for, respond to, and recover from any type of threat that could arise, all of which are critical pieces to the emergency operations planning process. As we know, school safety encompasses many different issues schools deal with every single day. And some of the areas the center provides training and guidance and develops resources to assist schools in their safety efforts include multi-hazard emergency operations planning, training and drilling, MOU development, internet safety, school safety audit process, behavioral threat assessment, youth preparedness, bullying prevention, as well as specialized training for school-based law enforcement officers across Texas. All the training we provide is free, and all the resources that we develop can be accessed through our website. A couple things I wanted to mention in terms of what school districts are required to do. One, they're required to have a multi-hazard emergency operations plan. The plan must provide for employee training and response drills the district will conduct, coordination with various local, regional, and state agencies. School districts have to conduct self-assessments of their facilities at least once every 3 years. And they have to submit certain components of that data to the Texas School Safety Center. And school districts currently are required to have a district safety and security committee. Several of the proposed bills expand the role of the Texas School Safety Center to further support schools across Texas in their safety efforts. And the Texas School Safety Center looks forward to serving the state in this capacity. So that said, I'm here as a resource to answer any questions.
Thank you. Members, any questions? The school boards have taken advantage of the training, or school districts have taken advantage of the training.
Yes, sir.
How many?
Oh, how many? In total since existence, all school districts across Texas have. Since our inception, we've trained well over 70,000 school personnel. Like I said, we train across every education service center here in Texas, so we make a point to go out to the state and do training and provide training in these various areas. One of the things I do want to mention is I appreciate the comprehensive approach to school safety by our leadership, by all of you, especially with an emphasis on prevention. That's what we focus heavily on. And so this behavioral threat assessment piece and management in schools is very critical.
Great. Questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Sherry Doss, President, Texas PTA, testifying for the board.
Good afternoon, Chairman Huey and members of the committee. My name is Sherry Doss, and I'm the president of Texas PTA, and with over 500,000 members who have a special interest in children, families, in schools. And I'm here today in support of House Bill 17 by Representative Greg Bonham. In the wake of recent tragedies, we are heartened to see a commitment to ensure that our schools are a safe place for students, teachers, and staff. The Texas School Safety Center has been an unutilized resource. In our opinion. And Texas PTA has actually worked closely with the center for over a year to identify policies that would expand the use of the comprehensive school safety plan and increase the number of staff and administrators that are actually trained in crisis response. We are pleased to see that Representative Bonham also sees the value of these resources that the School Safety Center provides and has strengthened their role in providing templates for a comprehensive emergency response plan and training for staff, as well as an audit oversight of schools and districts. We are supportive of the language to deal with the districts that are not compliant with these requirements for a multi-hazard emergency plan, operations plan, excuse me. Schools must take seriously the safety of their students and their children. I know that they do, but we'd like to see comprehensive plans prepared, and these are some of the resources that the Texas School Safety Center has. So thank you to Representative Bonham for this important piece of legislation, and thank you committee members, and we are here to ask that you support House Bill 17. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Any questions? All right, thank you for being here. Christine Nishimura, South Council Texas Charter Schools Association, testifying usually on the
Good afternoon, afternoon, Chairman Huberty and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on House Bill 17 today. I'm Christina Shimura, General Counsel for the Texas Charter Schools Association. We understand the need for more comprehensive emergency management plans for all public schools, including charter schools. Many of our charter schools already have these types of emergency management plans, even though they're not specifically in Chapter 37 for the requirement. We've reached out to Representative Bonnen's office regarding a couple of concerns, and we understand that they're amenable to a few of those changes. Specifically with Section 1 regarding the facility standards requirements. For charter schools, we're a bit concerned that the broadness of this language would require a lot of retrofitting and includes maybe facility standards that aren't directly related to safety standards that currently don't directly apply to charter schools. So we'd ask that there be some clarity in the language to make sure that the focus is on safety standards and are not too broad, to make sure that schools still have the ability and flexibility to decide what standards they need for their individual campuses. Second, under Section 5 of the bill, it requires that there be certain committee members and says that there must be a representative of a municipality. For some of our charter schools, that could be a lot of municipality members, making the committee a little bit unwieldy. I don't think that's the intent of the bill, but to ensure that at least a municipality member is on the committee and not one required for every city across the state for some of our charter schools. Finally, we're happy to hear that the safety allotment would be added into this bill. We just ask that there be some flexibility to make sure it's not just used for safety, facility safety standards, but as you heard, for also mental health professionals, and to be able to use that allotment for school counselors. Happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions? All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, Deborah Fowler. And you'll be followed by Jan Freeze.
Good afternoon. I'm Deborah Fowler. I'm the Executive Director for Texas Appleseed, and I'm here to testify on the committee substitute for House Bill 17. We were really pleased to see that the threat assessment language was included in the committee substitute. That was something that was in the omnibus bill on the Senate side, but wasn't originally in House Bill 17. The language that is in the committee substitute is, in our read of it, the closest language of all of the behavior threat assessment bills that have been filed to what's considered an evidence-based model. And I actually intended to hand this to you. We became aware of behavioral threat assessment through our research around the way that the number of students referred to the juvenile system in the wake of the Parkland and Santa Fe tragedies spiked really very significantly for two offenses, terroristic threat and exhibition of a firearm, which I've learned you don't actually have to have a firearm to be charged with. The language that's in the committee sub is close to what Virginia has adopted and used, which is an evidence-based model. And so that's why we think that of the bills that have been filed, this language is going to get us closer to the goals that you all want to achieve, which is ensuring safer schools and making sure that students are not unnecessarily put into contact with the juvenile justice system, and that they can also access needed supports and services. Happy to answer any questions at all that you may have about the report that you were just handed. I'm sure that you may have seen it over the summer. We published it while some of the interim hearings were still ongoing.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Jan Freeze, get it right this time?
Yeah.
All right. Yes, ma'am, you'll be followed by Morgan Craven.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Jan Freeze. I represent the Texas Counseling Association. Our membership includes not just school counselors, but also mental health professionals. And so both of those professional groups are, I'm pleased to see how much involved they are and engaged in these strategies. My testimony on House Bill 17 is really pretty simple. We would really like to request that school counselors be added to threat assessment teams as well as to the school safety and security teams. Currently, the language of the bill calls for classroom teachers to be included. School counselors are often lead the crisis response teams whenever there is a problem incident. For example, when we had the horrific shooting in Sunderland Springs, it was the crisis response team from the counseling department of Northside ISD that went in to provide resource and assistance to the students and families who were impacted by that. So we think including school counselors will add a breadth of experience and knowledge to those teams, which will help to ensure that as they make determinations, they are taking into consideration the psychosocial emotional well-being. School counselors are basically, you get a three-fer with the school counselor. School counselor is a classroom teacher, they're a school counselor, but what is often forgotten is that school counselors are also trained mental health professionals, and they're qualified to do clinical counseling work with their students when they are given the opportunity to do that. So those are the requests that I would make. I understand, I haven't seen the committee substitute, but I understand that the committee substitute would also include some language about having mental health professionals, non-physician mental health professionals from the local mental health authorities work with the schools. The language that I have seen says that they not provide direct clinical services. I would just suggest that perhaps that language be modified so that when there was a crisis or an emergency and we needed all hands on deck, they wouldn't be prohibited from delivering those services. So I thank you for your consideration, and I thank Chairman Bonin for his hard work on this.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Any questions? All right, thank you very much. Morgan Craven. You'll be followed by CJ Grisham.
My name is Morgan Craven. I'm the National Director of Policy for the Intercultural Development Research Association. I'm testifying on Committee Sub for HB17. So there are some really important parts of this bill that are great, including increasing access to mental health and substance use resources and implementing behavior threat assessment teams in schools. And the reason these approaches are good is because they're consistent with research about what works to actually create safer schools and more positive, supportive school climates. But we are concerned about the open safety allotment, specifically that it can be used for purposes like creating police forces and commissioning school resource officers, which we know is not consistent with research that's been shown to create safer schools and positive school climates. So the general issue with this approach is that the significant spending does not, again, reflect what we know works, which is investing in research-based programs, services, and in-school professionals that focus on climate prevention and intervention. The parts of the bill that mention using the funds to address adverse childhood experiences or funding counselors and mental health professionals in schools are great. We think that these are important. But that good intention and those monies are diluted if we group those important underfunded professionals and approaches in an allotment that also allows school districts to pour money into police. And obviously our fear is that the bulk of the money will be used for hiring and police officers. I'll end by saying that it's clearly important to allocate funds, once again, for trauma-informed care, for counselors, social workers, mental health professionals in schools, because we know that these approaches actually lead to safer schools, which is what we're all trying to achieve. But we detract from that effort if we also allow these limited resources to be used on the harsher approaches that we know actually create less safe campuses for many students. Thank you.
All right. Any questions for Ms. Craven? Thank you, Mayor. All right, CJ Grisham, and you'll be followed by Sarah Tate.
My name is CJ Grisham. I'm testifying on behalf of myself, I believe. I don't think I registered as an organization. Correct?
It says Open Carry Texas and Self.
Okay. Well, then I represent Open Carry Texas. We are a statewide nonprofit grassroots gun rights organization dedicated to the safe and legal carry of firearms. I'm here to testify on behalf of that organization and myself in favor of House Bill 17. I obviously believe that our most important asset is our children. In the Army, I was a counterintelligence special agent. I was involved in threat vulnerability assessments. I created and was responsible for physical security programs to protect our troops while we were overseas, protect our assets here in the United States, as well as the protection of classified information, classified facilities, things like that. So one of the things that I know from experience is that if you've got something that's very valuable, you need to protect it. And the way you protect it is by making it a hard target. The way you make it a hard target is both physical as well as philosophical and having the correct policies in place. So I support this bill because it does mandate that schools, as they're building or restructuring, that they create buildings that are going to keep our children secure. It's not a cure-all. It's not the be-all, end-all of protecting our kids, because you got to have a well-rounded philosophy about doing that. So it's not just physical barriers, but what happens when somebody gets through that physical barrier? Obviously, you need humans there that are able to stop any threats as well that make it through, because even in Iraq and Afghanistan, the best concertina wire and machine gun nests couldn't keep people from getting into our facilities and injuring our troops. So it's the same thing. We also need some security inside the school so that when those physical barriers are breached, there are individuals inside that can respond to any and all threats, which of course includes allowing teachers, faculty members, volunteers, security personnel to be able to respond to an armed threat with an armed response. And with that, unless you got any questions, I'll end my testimony.
Sure, members, any questions? All right, thank you, sir. Right there.
My name is Sarah Tay. I'm here as a volunteer from Sandy Hook Promise. I'm also a teacher in Vernon CISD. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words about House Bill 17. Like I said, I'm a volunteer for Sandy Hook Promise, which is a national nonprofit organization that takes a nonpartisan approach to preventing violence, including gun violence directed at students in schools. The organization was formed by family members who lost a loved one at Sandy Hook Elementary in 2012. I'm happy to see the critical and very necessary subject of school safety being discussed this year with House Bill 17, among others. According to the U.S. Department of Education, 80% of school shooters tell someone of their plans before acting. Additionally, there are also often warning signs that someone's at risk of harming themselves or others. But if we don't know what to look for, these signs are easily missed. That's why we must empower the students. While there's much adults can do to help prevent school violence, such as your current efforts to strengthen safety and security audits, we must give students the tools as well. From a teacher's perspective, I can tell you that students are the eyes and ears of our school. They have a unique perspective. They see and hear things that we don't, especially when it comes to online and social media. For these reasons, I urge you to include language in House Bill 17 that does two important things. First, provide students access to programs and training that teaches them how to combat social isolation and how to recognize the signs that someone is at risk of harming themselves or others. Second, ensure students have access to tools that foster information sharing between them and adults, such as an anonymous reporting system. An app, however, should always be accompanied by the training that teaches students when to speak up and why it is so important to do so. My school has adopted these no-cost programs and have taught students how to know the signs, and I can attest to the positive impact that they've had. Teachers and administrators should also have these tools. In particular, they should have tools that will help them respond to reported acts of violence, be they ongoing or pending, in an equitable and timely manner. Language creating threat assessment teams coupled with evidence-based training, for instance, should also be included in House Bill 17. In closing, students and teachers are a key piece of the school safety puzzle. For this reason, I encourage you to add language to House Bill 17 that makes violence prevention resources, including no-cost options, available to schools.
All right.
Take any questions.
Okay. Members, any questions? All right, thanks for coming. Thanks for reading with us. All right, next we have Jason Jets. And you'll be followed by Craig Borowski. And I don't intend for people to have to share the table just so people can get ready. You can on your own. Did I say your last name correctly? Giants. Jites? I don't remember that. All right. My name is Jason Jites. I'm currently the superintendent of schools at Centerville ISD. Here today representing Texas Association of Community Schools, and I am in favor of House Bill 17. I'd like to say thank you to the author of the bill, Dr. Bonin, and all the work he and the staff have put into developing it. From a little different standpoint, we're a rural school district. I'll start out by giving you a couple facts about CISD, why this bill is important to us. We had a bond election in 2014. We constructed a new elementary school. The tax rate increase on a $17 million bond in a small school such as ours was projected at 31 cents per $100 evaluation. As a result, another bond for us is simply not an option to secure the facilities. As a result of receiving the state assigned values of the comptroller study, CISD will have a reduction in funding this next year, and this bill would greatly benefit us by enabling the district to proceed with some upgrades in safety measures. I provided a handout for your viewing, and what it is showing is simply an aerial that has a picture of our junior senior high school. The yellow dots represent entrances from the outside and inside, one door in the way. So if you can see, there's 33 yellow dots. And I think I probably missed a few, but we at least have 33 entrances and exits that somebody could get into. In addition, we do not have an intercom system that can be heard outside, as there's no outside speakers. And as you can see, students have to travel from building to building to get to class. These issues are not atypical for other rural and mid-sized school districts. I understand some of you may look at this and wonder how over the years it happened. Simply put, we built the buildings we could build at the time. However, our facilities are older. We're built in an era where these concerns were smaller and didn't exist. We do not have the option to build at this time, so I reiterate, we're best trying to secure an unsecurable property. In relation to mental health, because I think it's a big part of the bill, we serve approximately 670 students. We have 2 counselors, one at the elementary, one at the junior senior high school. The high school counselor in Centerville is also responsible for campus testing, 504 paperwork, response to intervention processes, as well as college and career readiness. Many of our district positions share the same issue, and more funding to ensure items can be distributed among staff would help to resolve it. Furthermore, we live in a rural area. We talk about having these mental health counselors, but for us, counselors, if we have a kid that needs to see outside counseling, he usually has to travel to Huntsville to College Station, so you're looking at a 45 to 60 minute drive. I hope that my testimony has provided some reference for those of you that may not have similar sized schools within your legislative districts. We love our students just as much as everyone. We do not have the ability to give them anything different in regards to reforms to the current property. That is why we greatly appreciate the efforts of Dr. Bonin.
All right, thank you so much. Members, any questions? All right, thank you. And everything you said was fine, everything you said was great. I'm not trying to make an example of you. However, you're good. We have, how many bills left? So many. Somewhere upwards of 25, probably closer to 27, 28. As much as we want to hear from everyone about issues they care about, putting that here, at the same time, there are bills and people behind you who also want to testify. I don't like having to be the bad guy when the red light comes on. So when you see it, you don't have to do a hard stop, but wrap up. But also don't gear up for the next 2 paragraphs, because then I have to be the bad guy. No one likes it, especially me. And you prefer me to Chairman Huber, by the way. So let's just agree for everyone to do our best for that. Right? Not that anyone said anything bad or that we don't like. It's just that we're trying to manage our timing. So red light means wrap up nicely, gently, courteously to wrap up. All right. Here.
Thank you, Chairman Burnell. I'm the chief of police for a school district in the Houston area, all the United States. For cops, red means stop, so I'll definitely stop when the red light comes on.
You're the last person I want to say stop.
Okay. But I'm also a board member of the Texas School District Police Chiefs Association, and we've all been looking as a group. We have over 120 members in our group looking at this school safety issue, especially after Parkland and Santa Fe. In fact, we gathered up over 35 police officers from around Texas to help Chief Brown bring the kids back to school the week after that tragedy occurred. And I've also heard Chief Brown speak about how they handled it in law enforcement. But I agree with a lot of the speakers here today. This is a great bill. It's a great start into addressing the issue. However, we were also working on some legislation with Senator Whitmire and Representative Wiley's office, and it included the evidence-based programs that were mentioned earlier. Primarily, they include a triage kind of classification system, so not every single kid is labeled as a terroristic threat. And also, you can with the triage approach to classification at different levels of threat, you're not going to overwhelm the resources at the schools. Secondly, we need, from the evidence program, information. Right now, there's a lot of information we need on students is confidential: juvenile justice, criminal histories, mental health, discipline records, and so on. And that best practice from Virginia has that. And finally, I hope you fund the Texas School Safety Center well, because we're going to need a lot of training, and we're going to need to bring it all over Texas to make this work. Thank you.
It's an excellent point, Chief. Thank you so much. If there's any questions? All right, thank you so very much. All right, Anthony Duke III. You'll be followed by all right, Anthony Duke III. All right, we'll show Mr. Duke as not testifying but neutral on the bill. Alexei Swirsky. Hi there.
My name is Alexei Swirsky. I'm a Texas citizen from Houston, Texas. I would like to request that provisions be added to Representative Bowen's House Bill 17 to allow those with a license to carry to be able to carry in schools if they choose. Please let me tell you why. I'm here as a mother and a grandmother. I do not feel safe with my children and adult children being in gun-free zones, especially schools which may be considered to be gun-free zones. If only the bad guys have guns, because we know they're not interested in following the law, it is not a safe situation. If a good guy with a gun is present, the number of victims in a massacre can be greatly reduced. Many of these bills do not go far enough in protecting a citizen's right to carry guns in a school. Almost 98% of mass shootings since 1950 happened in a place where a gun was not allowed. Or to stop them. Good guys like Stephen Williford have stopped the shootings and saved lives at First Baptist Church of Sutherland Springs. So Texans need to be allowed to carry their guns in schools, and I would like that provision added to the bill, please.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on or against House Bill 17? All right, at this time, the chair withdraws the committee substitute for House Bill 17 and recognizes Representative Bonin to close.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I just want to thank everyone for all the work that's been put into this piece of legislation up to this point. All those who came and testified today, I think some excellent observations and very constructive criticism was made. It is a work in progress, and we'll continue to do what we can to make it even better than what it already is. And
I agree, Jeff.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for the representative? Thank you very much, sir. All right, House Bill 17, we left 10 minutes. You're off the hook. Oh no, you're back up. The chair lays out House Bill 54.
All right, guys, I don't think that has anything to do with us, so I'm going to turn this off.
All right, and recognize Representative Bonin to explain the measure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. House Bill 1754 creates a new school safety allotment of $50 per year or a greater amount provided by appropriation for each student in average daily attendance in pre-kindergarten through grade 12 in the district. A school district is required to use the allotment to increase school safety and to prevent threats in advance. The bill also describes examples of uses of the allotment and requires each district in its multi-hazard emergency operations, school safety, and security audit to certify that the allotment has been used only for increasing school safety and preventing threats. Additionally, this legislation, House Bill 1754, further entitles certain school districts that are required to take action under Chapter 41 of the Education Code to accredit for the allotment amount against the total amount required to purchase attendance credits. A school district that is otherwise ineligible for state aid under Chapter 42